What's up, everyone? This is Noa Dalzell, and I'm here with another episode of You Got Boston. Here at TD Garden, where the Celtics just won the second night of a back-to-back, a 131-95 win over the Memphis Grizzlies. This was a fun game. This was the game that they very much needed after a bunch of close ones and a couple of tough losses on that road trip that they easily could have gone 3-0, and in the end, they finished that road trip 1-2. And they played a Memphis Grizzlies team that has struggled this season, that was without John Morant. And so similar to how I felt after the Wizards win last week, where it was a great win and a lot of guys stepped up. They weren't playing the best competition, but at this point, who this roster is, who this team is, every win matters, every game matters, and I think you really want to see them be able to kind of pull some of these out without Jaylen Brown playing 35 minutes and without it going down to the final possession. And they took care of business tonight. And so the first thing that I'm going to start with in this episode, and I was really looking forward to recording tonight. It's a lot easier to record after wins, I will admit that. But I wanted to talk about the backcourt because I had really high expectations for both Derrick White and Payton Pritchard entering the season, and that's because both of those guys were coming off great years. Both of those guys have shown to be elite three-point shooters. And I thought to myself, okay, they have an opportunity now to be higher volume players, higher usage players. And yes, it's going to be a little bit harder. They don't have some great stars and playmakers around them, and Jason Tatum, Drew Holiday, Al Horford. But I really did believe in their ability to produce. And I thought Derrick White might flirt with an all-star appearance. I think many of you know that I've said in the past that Payton Pritchard has an all-star level ceiling as well. And those takes did not look really good for the first couple weeks of the season because both of those guys have just been in massive shooting slumps. So the biggest thing I'll say is both of those players had great games tonight, not just as far as three-point shooting goes, but across the board, they had great games. Payton Pritchard finished with 24 points, 9 assists, 6 rebounds, and he was a career best plus 42. That is the best plus-minus that he has ever had in his NBA career. Derrick White had 20 points, 4 assists, 5 rebounds, 2 steals, and the important thing, I think, as it relates to three-point shooting, both of those guys shot well from beyond the arc. And I think that's been the number one thing that has been really, really hard is that even when they're doing other things well, Payton's had some really good offensive performances where he is scoring well in the paint. And Derrick's had some games where he's played some great defense and had, he's near the top of the league right now in steals and blocks. They have not been able to find a rhythm from the outside. And tonight, both of them shoot 50% from three. Payton goes 5 of 10. Derrick goes 3 of 6. And the Celtics as a whole shoot 41% from three. So this was what they needed. At the end of the day, when you don't make shots, the offense looks stagnant and everything looks bad. And when you do make shots, everything looks great. And I'm never going to overreact to a shooting performance in both directions. I've said this many times on this show and others. But what I will say is that it's very apparent to me that tonight something clicked for, in particular, Derrick. You could see that he was playing with a level of joy that he just hasn't had this season, and he has been down on himself. It's been hard. He talked about it pretty extensively post-game that everybody's telling him, we believe in you, you're going to make your shots, and it's like the more they say that, the harder it gets sometimes to find a way to break out because everybody believes in you. They know that they want you to take those shots, and you're still overthinking it. And Derrick White credited Matt Reynolds for being somebody who has been in his ear quite a bit. Matt Reynolds, one of the assistant coaches on the Celtics, who was also the Summer League head coach. He's Derrick's guy on this coaching staff, and he has been a source of joy and trying to keep him spirits high and everything, but it's hard. And so Payton and Derrick are near the bottom of the league as it comes to like guys whose three-point percentage has dropped from last year to this year. I saw a graphic earlier today, and it's like they were within the bottom 5. They both have just dramatically reduced their three-point percentage. And water is going to find its level, and tonight you saw that both with the numbers, but also in their spirit and the way that they played. And both of those guys spoke after tonight's game. I would encourage, sometimes post-game press conferences are a little bit boring. I would encourage everybody to go check out Payton Pritchard's locker room interview as well as Derrick White's podium interview. In particular, Payton's, he was very reflective, but just how difficult it's been to be shooters who are suddenly now not seeing the ball go through the basket. And Payton in particular said, the previous 2 games, he scored 5 points in each of those games. He said he just felt like he was not himself. He was overthinking every decision. Should I pass? Should I shoot? Should I dribble? Like every read. And he was not playing on instinct. And he said it was really hard. And this morning he got a haircut and he said to himself, I'm going to come out and I'm going to play with a different energy. And it showed in the numbers. It showed in his performance. And it was apparent from the jump that it was a different Payton Pritchard than the one that we saw last night in Philadelphia and the night before, or 2 nights ago in Orlando. And so that's a great thing. I know the fans ride the highs and lows of these players' shooting slumps, but they can't ride those. And so I thought it was it was great to see that, and it was great to hear them both reflecting upon how yes, it's been difficult, but it seems like the corner has turned. And I will say, Derrick White was one of my positive takeaways from the Philadelphia game, even though he was 7 of 20 from the field in that one, because he had that extra like bounce in his step, and he had that level of like spirit that he was playing with. He was more aggressive, and that's what you want to see from him. So the shots are not always going to fall, but you don't want him to have his head down. You don't want him to seem like he's losing his confidence or his mojo, and I do think you saw that a little bit in the early parts of the season, especially from Derrick, but really both of those guys. I think you're seeing that a little bit from Sam right now, who was 1 of 7 from 3 tonight, missed his first 6 attempts, and when he finally hit one, he was like, thank God. But this team is going to go as far as this backcourt goes, and part of why I projected this was going to be a playoff team when a lot of people didn't is because I think that Payton Pritchard and Derrick White are 2 really good basketball players that do everything well. They pass, they rebound, they defend, they're competitors, and they can score and they can shoot. But you take away the shooting abilities, and this is a game that ultimately is all about, can you make your shots and can you put points on the board? Tonight they score 135 points, and 131 points I should say, and that's in large part because the backcourt finally gave you the production, 44 points combined, that you know they're capable of. And also, Payton Pritchard, I'll say this, 9 assists, 0 turnovers. Like, that's been his MO for a very long time in this league. He has been near the top of the league when it comes to assist to turnover ratio. So big shout out to both of those guys for, it seems like, beginning to turn a corner here. We'll see how it goes when they face the Clippers on Sunday. That's going to be a test to see, can you kind of ride that momentum from one game into the next. But it was really good to see, especially Payton reflecting on, like, it really sucked these last few games, and I was hard on myself, and I was down in the dumps, and I had to like change something, and the energy shifted as it relates to those 2 players. And if they can keep that up, and I'm not saying like shoot 50% from 3 every single night, but if you can shoot 35% from 3 versus 22%, that is all the difference in the world. And so tonight you saw that. I think it's going to continue, and I've said this from the beginning of the year, when the 3-point shot comes around for those players, everything's going to change, because this team is ranked near the bottom of the league in assists, in points, and Joe Mazzulla kind of, said tongue-in-cheek in the post-game press conference, but you can only get assists if you make baskets. So in this game, they racked up those assists because they were actually able to finally hit some shots. And I think they've been getting really good looks, and especially Payton. He's been getting so many clean looks. Derrick's getting some corner threes. He was just so frustrated after last night's loss that he was missing shots that are right in his wheelhouse. And so that is far and away my biggest takeaway from tonight. It's not my only takeaway, but it's my biggest takeaway because those 2 players are so important, and they're both just emotional guys that wear their heart on their sleeve on the court. So you can tell when they're struggling that it's not even just the box score. It's also it's on their face. And a lot of players are like that, but they're near the top of the list in that regard, as is Sam Hauser, who is going to continue to be really important for this team, but is just not as high volume of a shooter as Payton and Derrick are. And so their struggles kind of magnify the whole team's offensive issues. The other thing I'll say is I want to talk about Luka Garza and Neemias Queta, but first a quick message from our friends over at PrizePicks. I do want to give a quick shout out to our friends over at PrizePicks. PrizePicks is the sponsor of this show. This episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. You and I make decisions every day, but on PrizePicks, being right can get you paid. Don't miss any of the excitement this season on PrizePicks, where it's good to be right. I told many of you this, but I attended my first football game this past week, which was a lot of fun, and was super impressed by what I saw of Drake May. So I will certainly be picking more on Drake May for all the categories, all the player projections. So you can check that out. PrizePicks is simple to play. Just pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections. If you get your picks right, you could cash in. PrizePicks is also the best way to get action on sports in more than 40 plus states, including California, Texas, and Georgia. PrizePicks puts their users first, so all withdrawals are fast, safe, and secure. PrizePicks offer Venmo, Apple Pay, MasterCard, and more for a quick and easy deposit into your account this football season. Download the app today and use code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, it's good to be right. So entering the season, I think the biggest question that everybody had was, what is this front court rotation going to look like? And Neemias Queta, Luka Garza, and Xavier Tillman are the 3 guys that were rostered that could potentially vie for those minutes. And all 3 are unproven players. X has dealt with a bunch of knee injury issues. Queta, Luka both buried behind multiple centers in their previous stops last year, Neemias here in Boston and Luka in Minnesota. And it hasn't been all perfect. I think they've each had their moments of strengths and moments of struggle. Tonight was the best game that I felt they both played combined. Like if you had to pick like what was your best center game of the season, tonight they both had really good showings. And it was great to see because neither guy is going to play 35 minutes a night. I think they both have things that they do really well. Queta obviously gives you an above the basket game that Luka doesn't. But Luka is a prolific offensive rebounder and also somebody that can space the floor better than Queta can. And he hit 2 threes in the first quarter tonight, which was huge and kind of jumping ahead and building a big lead. But I really liked what you saw from both of them. Queta had 13 points, 8 rebounds, and 2 assists. And I know there's a lot of Queta fans, Portugal fans that have been DMing me and reaching out and basically saying this guy's wide open and they're not finding him. And I do appreciate when people flag stuff. I mean, obviously it's something that I've seen a little bit, but I did go back and rewatch some of the games, and you guys are right. Like, he is open, and I do think that there are a lot of moments where guards are just not seeing him, and it's something that comes with chemistry, comes with time. You know, they're not used to all playing together, but tonight that there were more moments where guys found Queta than I think in the last couple of games, and that translated in his offensive production, and I think it's a good sign for this team moving forward because he is a weapon that they have on the offensive end. He's not just a guy that can maybe clean a missed shot. Like, he has an above the basket game, and it's not perfect and it's a little bit raw. But guys like Payton Pritchard, Anthony Simons, Jaylen Brown, Derrick White, like they can all do a better job of looking for him. Anthony had some really nice passes to him today that I liked, Payton as well. And that's what they're going to need to keep doing as a team to kind of put him in good spots. And when I asked Queta about this a couple of days ago, or maybe it was last week, he said, you know, we're not running plays for me, but it's important to him, or it's not a conversation topic about like we need Queta to take more shots, but it is important that he's aggressive and that he's demanding the defense, because if he is just standing there and the defender knows, okay, well, they don't pass the Queta she takes 3 shots a game, it puts the pressure on everybody else. And so he needs to be a weapon out there, even if he's not scoring a bunch. He needs to be active, and the defender needs to think, okay, Queta's rolling and he's actually a lob threat and they look for him all the time, therefore I can't just cheat and put all this pressure on Payton and Derrick, who are already struggling. Like, it's a team game ultimately, right? And so it does matter that I think that they're looking for him in that sense. And tonight you saw some good moments of that. You also saw Luka Garza follow. It's been a couple of really nice games for Luka Garza. 14 points, 7 rebounds for him. He was 2 of 3 from 3. If the three-point shot is real, which it hasn't been really in his NBA career, but he was a good shooter in college, like that's another dynamic to his game and to the Celtics that is super impactful, because ultimately, like, there are not a lot of bigs that can crash the glass and be out there defensively and do all those things and then also shoot threes. It's still a skill set that is highly desired in the league, which is why the Celtics have struggled to find those players right now. But they each played a significant portion of minutes tonight, and they both did things really well. And just like with Payton and Derrick, with these two guys, it's like they're both important. It's not just one guy. You know, Queta can play a great game, but if he's only playing 28 minutes, you don't want to lose the Luka Garza minutes, and vice versa. And Queta has been much better in the plus-minus department, which is sometimes has to do with combinations, but I think it is indicative of the fact that he's had a stronger start to the year than Luka has. But Luka has had a great week here, and I did a full story. You can check it out on Celtics blog. I talked a little bit about this in yesterday's episode as well, but Luka Garza is known for being this hard-working player. That is what got him to where he is now. And Joe Mazzulla, who doesn't love to shower players with compliments, he said post-game, when asked about Luka's performance and his offensive rebounding, he said, you know, some guys just have a special ability to be the hardest playing player on the court, and he is one of those guys. And I followed up with him, and I said, you know that from the moment you met him? And he's like, right away, you could tell. And I asked Luka about it, and he said, yeah, when you're not that athletic, you have to figure it out. And so you see it in every moment. I think that's the gift that he brings to this team. Is this is a scrappy team that they want them to play really, really hard and be the harder playing team at all moments. And when you have a guy on the court that you can pretty much guarantee, there's been maybe a couple of possessions all year where he hasn't been the hardest playing player. That's a great thing for you, because it's contagious and that's a tone that everybody else has to follow. So big shout out to Queta and Luka in kind of solidifying that it's not going to be every night, and this wasn't the most formidable front court, you know, here in Memphis, but certainly, you know, Jared Jackson Jr. has been is on a supermax contract. Jock Landale has been in this league for a long time. So it's great to see those guys kind of put up these big performances and also come in and give you something new. Like, I don't want Luka checking in to me now. There's a significant decline in what the center production is going to look like. And right now, that's not what we're seeing, right? So that's been really great as well. The last thing I wanted to mention is Jordan Walsh, who started for the first time this season and the third time in his career, and did a great job defending. And now he's guarded in the past week. He's guarded Tyrese Maxey, Paolo Banchero, and now Jaren Jackson Jr. And that's like 3 completely different players. It's super impressive that he's able to bounce around and go from guarding a shifty 2-guard to a guy who was a post player and a defensive player of the year. And that's what he's been able to showcase. And it's a credit to his athleticism and length and some of his raw intangibles, but also his ability to follow the game plan. And he forced some offensive fouls. He made life difficult. I don't know who he's best suited to guard between. It's too limited of a sample for me to say, like, okay, he's best on a player like Tyrese versus a player like Jaren Jackson, etc. But like, the good thing is that you're seeing, A, that he's gaining the trust of his coaching staff, and B, that he actually is a really good defender. And now you might have 3 guys in Ugo, Josh, and Jordan that are all kind of have a similar overlapping skill set of guarding with 100% of your soul. And right now, Jordan has the upper hand in the rotation, but Ugo started a game this season. Josh started 9 games, and I think that the rotation is going to continue to be like Joe is going to ride whoever has been playing the hardest and been playing the best over the past few weeks. And right now, this past week, it's been Jordan. He's been awesome. Josh, relegated to the bench, did some great things tonight. He actually ended up playing more minutes than Jordan did in this game, scoring more points. So the starting thing is not a huge deal to me, but the fact that you're now seeing that you have this defensive versatility from a guy like Jordan Walsh, who literally 10 days ago, I didn't know they saw anything in him because he wasn't playing at all, is really good. So the reality is, right, I'll say this in total. I went through some of the individual performances that really impressed me, but this team is 6-7. They could easily be 7-6. They could easily be 8-5. They could honestly be 9-4. Like, they've been in every game with the exception of 1 or 2 games all season long. And they've lost most of their crunch time games. And part of that is just basketball. It happens. Even the most clutch players lose clutch losses because the ball doesn't bounce their way or, whatever. Part of that is you have a bunch of guys that have not been here before that are figuring out how to win together. But Joe Mazzulla was asked by Gary Washburn after the game, like, what have you learned about your team 13 games into the season? And he said, they care. They care. There's a high care factor. And that's a great thing because it's still really early on. There's a lot of challenges that they're going to continue to have to overcome. But they played 13 games in 22 days. It was a really rigorous start to the season. And I can say, as a reporter I've been to every one of these games. I've been to every single road game so far this season. Like, it's worn on me, the travel schedule. I cannot imagine how it feels to be a professional basketball player who's like dealing with the physicality and everything and injuries and recovery and having that schedule. And they're right in it. They're about a 500 team right now, but all the advanced metrics show that they're better than their record is. They have a positive net rating. They've been one of the best half-court defenses in the league all season long. And then when their shots fall like they did tonight, you're like, okay, this team's great. And that's kind of been the holdup so far. And so they're not going to shoot 41% from 3 every night. You're not going to get, great games from Derrick and Payton. And Jalen, who I haven't even mentioned today, had another really solid performance. 6 assists, 6 boards for him. He shot 50% from the field. I think he finished with 19 points in this game. Jalen's just kind of become like an every night guy, which honestly he's been for most of his career. But he's been super reliable for this team so far. But to me, it's just been like, can the shot begin to fall at a consistent rate? And a lot of that comes down to Derrick and Payton and Sam, your 3 sharpshooters. Anthony has been shooting well so far this season. He had a really nice playmaking game, so shout out to him. I think he finished with 7 or 8 assists. But ultimately, like, you see now the vision for what this team can do when they're shooting well. I think the offense has had really good moments and really good play calls and good, dribble drive, penetration and things like that. But it's just like if the shots aren't falling, it all looks bad at the end. And so overall, 13 games in, what I've learned about this team is that they're kind of who I thought they were going to be. They're young guys that have a ton of upside. There's some vets who are winners and competitors, and the only thing that surprised me is the fact that Derrick and Payton were on this concurrent massive slump together. I didn't anticipate that, but it happens, and hopefully now they're both kind of coming out of it, and we'll see what happens next. But super encouraging win here at TD Garden. Celtics needed this one after dropping some really tough losses. From a morale standpoint, you lose a game like they did in Philadelphia, on a offensive rebound putback, and Derrick dribbles off, and it was just that was a heartbreaking loss. Being in that locker room yesterday, 24 hours later, you come out and you blow out a team that's also in the second night of a back-to-back. It's a good sign. It's good for spirits, and we'll see now. They have a couple days off. They have some time to practice, and we'll be back here on Sunday for another game. They'll host the Clippers, another team that's underachieved a little bit this season. We'll see how that one goes. But a lot to love in this one. Hopefully you enjoyed the game. Hopefully you enjoyed the podcast. As always, subscribe. Let me know what you thought about this game in the comment section. Were there any positives that I missed? There honestly might have been because I don't have my notes in front of me. So I'm just thinking of what I just experienced here. But generally speaking, I think this is one of the more encouraging kind of all-around wins for the Celtics team. A lot to like, and we'll have more coming soon. So thanks as always for watching.